What the fish? Welcome to the Fish Perspective Podcast. These are our guidelines.
Our first guideline is the talking piece. If you have the talking piece, you can talk, but if you don't have the talking piece, you should be actively listening. Our talking piece is a fish with one eye.
Our next guideline is confidentiality, of course, but given the context of, we're filming and we're putting it on the internet, it's not going to be as confidential, but we'll treat it as such. We're going to have an epic circle.
Our third guideline is that passing is okay because every great circle needs an even greater listener.
Our next guideline is sequence, and it's very important that everybody has their voices heard in the sequence.
Our last guideline is that there's no name dropping allowed in circle because we want everyone to be able to protect themselves if something not positive is being said about them.
Hey guys, welcome back to episode 3 of the Fish Perspective Podcast. Today we have Junior Spark here. And we have a pretty big fish to fry today, but we're going to start off with a little minnow, and I'm just going to send our fish around and ask what everyone's name is and what their theme song would be walking through the hallway.
Okay, so I'm Zoe. I think my theme song would definitely be the Imperial March from Star Wars, because I'm just a big Star Wars fan, so that's all I got.
I'm Addison, and I kind of think my theme song would be Unwritten because I just kind of think it's really joyful, and I feel like when I'm in the hallway I'm always smiling.
My name is Erica. I didn't really know what to choose, so I chose Pink Skies by Zach Bryan.
My name is Connor, and I choose Superstition by Stevie Wonder because it's upbeat, groovy, and it has a very feel-good vibe about it, and I feel like that's the perfect way to describe me.
Hi, my name is Hannah, and if I had to choose a theme song when I'm walking down the hallway, it would definitely be Telephone by Lady Gaga because it's just so upbeat, and also it's kind of giving baddie vibes, so I love that.
Hi, my name's Reese, and I'm the prevention counselor at Peru. If I had to pick a theme song, it'd probably be The Man by Taylor Swift, because it's Taylor Swift.
Hi, I'm Addie, and my theme song I think would be Sailor Song by Gigi Perez because I think her voice is very beautiful.
Hi, I'm Liam, and this would have been an easy question for me, but I have so many theme songs that I limit it down to artists, and my main one would be Miss Lauryn Hill. Any song by her is phenomenal. And then my second honorable mention would be Party on Fifth Ave by the late, the great Mac Miller.
Mac Miller. That's a good one. I say mine would probably be It Will Rain by Bruno Mars. I love Bruno Mars, but specifically his older music, something about it. I could listen to it all day, every day.
I'm Kenzie, and I'm a very big country girl. I love country music, but everyone says that I have a super chaotic vibe to me. So I have to pick Tweaker by Jello because it just describes me so well. But I'm going to pass this on over to Addie, and we're going to get into it.
So as you heard, we are here with Junior Spark today, and I'm going to let Erica tell you some about what that is and why we want to talk about it today.
Okay, so SPARK is Substance Abuse Prevention and Recovery of Clayton County. And so it's a little group that talks about many different things when it comes to drug abuse, mental health, domestic abuse, etc. And our job is to talk about it, to get it out to everybody. That way people can get help when needed, if that makes sense.
Okay, so let's start with our second question of why is Junior Spark important and why should it be in our school?
I believe that it's important because it can help people. Letting them know that they're not alone is really important when it comes to things like this. And having it in our school is helpful because I don't think people realize how many teenagers are also struggling with the same thing that adults are struggling with. And this way they have somebody to come to and a place to go to talk about what's going on and get the help that they need and want.
I think you summed it up perfectly, and I don't know what to add now. Other than I think which I guess what you said was great.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, Erica. Like, that's perfectly what I was gonna say. I think Junior Spark is like very important because like it brings awareness to some things that teachers and like certain people haven't touched on, and to like bring awareness to that like for our school is super important. Being able to like help each other, like, and other kids probably don't even realize that there's probably other people like their classmate going through the same thing as them. So I feel like that's really important to bring to our school and our community.
Going off of what has already been mentioned, I think those were very accurate descriptions of Junior Spark, but I think it's also important to note that it's a student-led committee, so it is supposed to help with self-advocacy and empowering students to help with their communities as well, whether they're the ones directly being affected or indirectly being affected, because our choices do affect ourselves and our communities that we surround ourselves in.
I believe it's important because for the next coming generations, we want to be able to put a stop or limit the amount of drug use, especially within our school. So I believe that is very, very important for us to try and voice our opinion about this and try and get it out there for the next coming students and such.
The pressing issue of addiction and depression is often a silent, very, very silent struggle, and it's difficult to talk about. And that is exactly why it is such an honor to have organizations like Spark in our school, because it brings light to everybody, not just the ones that are affected. And we're very grateful to have you guys on the podcast, because that's even more publicity for such a great committee. And
Yeah, Liam, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say that's exactly why we have a podcast like this, is to talk about those heavy topics that not everybody knows about. Like, Spark is not so well known around our school, and so the purpose of this is to get the word out and to help, like, show our community members, not just our students, but also our parents at home who watch our episodes, to like understand that this is a real issue and it's not just something that's, you know, made up. Like, this is a real thing that happens to everyday people and students especially. And for it to be a student-led organization is just such an amazing thing, that students have the ability to advocate for themselves and be able to understand what's wrong and that things need to change.
Yeah, I fully agree. Like, I had no idea that this program existed, and I'm glad that it's coming to light now, and that we could have you guys on here to kind of educate more people on the topic, because I feel like it's a topic that not a lot of people, like, it's uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable topic, and I feel like this way we can kind of ease into it. Yeah, and I fully agree with Skylar and Liam.
Yeah, so I didn't know that this was a program here at our school either. But I think it's definitely a good topic to bring up because a lot of people struggle. And a lot of it, I think, is mental, and maybe this, like, talking about it will help people, like, ask for help or reach out to other people. And it might even help prevent some people from making bad decisions. So I think it can be a hard topic for some people, but it definitely needs to be one that should be brought up and talked about. We call this a big fish for a reason because it's not talked about a lot, and it's something that really needs to be started. Like, there needs to be conversations about this topic on many different avenues and different types of ways. Some of it is caused by, like, mental health and just, like, where they grow up in their family environments, but some of it is just, like, peer pressure because all their friends do it, so why shouldn't they? So I think it's very important that we try to get this in our school so then we can, like, educate other people, because it's a big fish and it deserves, like, I feel like we could make it smaller if we tried. Will you be okay to ask the next question?
Sure.
Okay, so the second question is, should people be judged because they made poor decisions? Do you want me to answer, or do you want to go first? Okay.
Okay, so I never think that someone should be judged for a poor decision they made. Like my dad, he like dipped for like 20 years of his life, and he just like decided to like stop 2 years ago, like on New Year's resolution. And like he's been the best father like a girl could ask for. So even though he like did a substance for so long, like it never affected his like fathering, like it never affected him being a good father. So I feel like, and even with bigger like poor decisions, I don't think anyone should ever be judged on one decision, because they could make 20 good decisions and that go unnoticed, and then they make one bad decision and it's like, oh, you're a terrible person because you made that bad decision. So I don't think anyone should ever be judged for anything they do, because it's not your life to decide. Like, it's not your place to judge someone, you know?
I thought you meant dipped as in like left, and I was about like, oh goodness, Kenzie, that's so like, oh my goodness. Okay, you meant dip. Okay. I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. All right, moving on. I think that no, people should not be judged, because at the end of the day, it's all our first goes at it, you know, like at life. None of us have been through it more than this time. So you know what I mean? Like, sometimes I'll be upset with someone and then I'll like remember that, oh, well, you know, it's their first time living too. Like, I can't really judge them too much on those decisions that they made, because they've never been through it before, or they've never, just like me, never experienced certain things. And so I can't be too quick on the gun. So yeah.
I'm a very empathetic person. So if I visualize or I observe somebody has made a poor decision and I see that they're being judged for it amongst their peers or their friends or whatever, their family, I very much feel for that person, because I try to put myself in them in their shoes, and I try to think about the context of, you know, whatever happened. And I always try to see the silver lining in things.
I don't believe that somebody should be judged off of their bad decisions, just because, especially on the topic of addiction, because I feel like not only is addiction, but it's also a disease that thousands and thousands of people fight with every day. And once it becomes a disease, it's no longer anything that they can really control. They have to. So I don't feel like we should be judging them off the decisions that they make while using drugs, just because that's not them, you know?
I really like how Liam brought in the perspective part and empathy, because I think that goes a long way, because I think there's a big difference between judging and holding somebody accountable. And that's one thing with like Junior Spark, is your idea is to hold yourself and your peers accountable along with your community. But it does take a lot of empathy at the same time, because perspective is a huge thing, because we can go through something, as Skylar also mentioned, how we're all going through life for the first time, all of us, even myself. And it is hard for us to navigate it, but context is a huge thing as well, because we don't know what everybody else is going through. So the way we react might be completely different than the way somebody else reacts. It also goes into the way our brains are wired. Nobody's the same. So I think that's something important to keep in mind before making any assumptions around anybody else.
Definitely, I try not to judge anyone by their poor decisions. I know I definitely struggle with judging people, and that's something I really need to work on. What Skylar said, like, it's everyone's first time living too. I like to think about that almost every day. If I see someone make a poor decision, I'm like, whatever, that's fine. Just let it be, because it's not me. It's not me making that decision. If there's someone making like a poor decision that's like repetitive and it's like affecting me in my daily life, then I like feel like, oh, I'm not comfortable with this. Like, that's how I feel with that. But I don't think people should ever judge like others for making poor decisions, because like what Addie said, sometimes it's not them, especially if it's like drug involved or they're in like a poor mental space, because you never know what someone's struggling with, so you can't really judge them if you don't know what's going on in their personal life.
I think everyone has at least made a poor choice in their life before, And it's part of being human, We make mistakes, we make choices, we have regrets. It's a learning process. And I really think that no one should be judged for it, because at the end of the day, we're all human. We all have our differences. We all have our struggles. We all have our weaknesses. And I think you can use that to be empathetic, like you said, like Liam said, and come together and realize that, okay, I've done wrong. You've done wrong. We've all done wrong. We move forward and be better ourselves as people. That's what I think. And I don't think we should judge someone and criticize them because they did wrong.
I feel like there's definitely a difference between judging and constructive criticism, because there are people that need that constructive criticism. And when you are in addiction, you feel like that constructive criticism is just you being judged, and it's not. It's the people around you trying to help you. I will say that there are people that do judge, but being able to constructively tell this person, this is what's wrong, this is how we can help you, and this is how we move forward, is very important. I like Reese said, accountability. If you feel like you're being judged, you're not going to take accountability. You're going to be like, oh no, I didn't do that, I wouldn't do that, da 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 da. And it's important for these people to know that you are there for them, but you're there with them and not against them. That way you can help them recognize their poor decisions, and you can help them move forward.
I really like how you put that, because there most definitely is a difference between constructive criticism and judgment, because with judgment you're kind of like shaming the person for doing something, and it happens in like the simplest ways. Like I could like judge Addie's shoes because I don't like them that day, but that's like being cruel, like mean to someone, and that's not what we want to do. We want to help people find ways and different avenues to help better themselves. And I feel like sometimes when people get that like way to be accountable, they think they're like getting targeted almost, like people are judging them even though they're not. And I think it's important to realize that people just want to help you most of the time. Like sometimes it does come from someone where you're just like, I don't really know where this is coming from, but like I would say 9 times out of 10 it's out of like a good place. I just think people are scared to take that help.
So I definitely don't think people should be judged. Everybody, like, I feel like a lot of people say this, but don't judge a book by its cover. Like, everybody is different. Everybody has their own purpose. Like, everybody's different, and you have to appreciate that. And sometimes when people are struggling, they can't always help themselves, so you need to be willing to help others. And even if it is like a consistent, like, hey, like you need to find help, or can I help you with something, it could, like, if you don't see it right away, but eventually you could, like, it could have like a better result or improve like what's happening. So I think that, yeah, if you can't find help, then maybe hopefully other people around you, even if you're not really friends with them, they might still notice like if something's off, or if you think that they need help, like you should go at least talk to them and see. It's better to ask or offer help than not, because everything can change in an instant or in a moment. Even if it's just small, it can still have a big impact. So, okay.
Before we move on to the next question, I just want to make a couple like comments on what everyone said. I really like what you said about constructive criticism and like the comparison to judgment, because I feel like a lot of people don't really know how to take constructive criticism, and I feel like that's kind of a life skill that some people need to learn, because I feel like constructive criticism comes from a place, like you said, like of good, and judgment comes from a place of hurt, So I feel like feeling out the difference between that is difficult for some people sometimes. And then I like the connection of empathy too, because I know Liam, he's a very empathetic person, so that makes complete sense. But the next question is, what should students expect to know about the topics Junior Sparks covers?
I just want to I just want to touch back on again like the difference between like stern love and like not stern love but like tough love, you know, like you can still care for that person or like still be there for them but not let the bad behavior slide, like holding them accountable for what they are doing and realizing that it's not a good thing and that they need to cut it out. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think it's important to note that we're not here trying to target anybody or trying to make anybody feel less than simply because they have a problem. I think it's important to note that we are simply here trying to do better for not only our school but for ourselves and trying to better each and everybody.
I think some of the topics that students can expect to see with Junior Spark is obviously conversation around substance use and substance prevention, but also tapping into mental health, other risk factors falling in schools such as like truancy, low commitment to school, potential behavior problems, family problems that can cause issues within the school domain and interpersonal issues as well. Even looking at boundaries, consent, healthy relationships, and all those conversations that are following along risk factors that we are seeing in teens and adolescents struggling with. So,
I definitely think we're here to help the best that we can. Some of these topics, they probably will be familiar to students because personally when I came to Junior Spark, I was familiar with some of the substance use because we recently just talked about some of the drugs and substances that have been used frequently by students in the Clinton County area. I'm familiar with them, but I think personally from everyone that's part of Junior Spark just wants to help others and wants to we want to get everyone familiar how we can help, how we can prevent, and how we can treat.
I didn't know much about Spark, but when I heard about it, I knew that I had to get on the bandwagon because I definitely think that the topics that they bring up are huge issues that no one really addresses, and they really should be addressed. And I really think they should be addressed, the topics, because, no one's really talking about them, and there's such a problem, especially here in Clinton County. And I don't know quite what to expect of this. I'm very new to this, but I definitely think this is a huge step to fixing the problem and help people with addiction and mental health topics, issues, and just overall the condition of this issue and stop it from growing to something way worse.
Like everybody said, we're here to help. We're here to help the students, our community, the people around us, our family members, our friends. And it's about helping. It's and taking accountability for your actions and how you can help and how you've added to it or taken from it. Mental health is a huge thing. It is. Mental health and abuse go together. Any abuse, physical, drug, mental, all of it. It all leads back to mental health issues. Your brain is there's always something in the back of your head that is the reason it leads up to these things. And being able to be there and help these people is very important. And learning about it and talking about these topics so we can help people should be our biggest goal here, honestly.
I love how passionately you're speaking about this because there's such fire behind your voice. It's you're really bringing the point home that it is important and that there's so much stuff behind what drug abuse is. It's not someone decided to take this drug today because it sounded like a fun idea. There's mental abuse, physical abuse, there's all of these harm factors that go into it, or maybe they just grew up around it because their parents went through that different abuse stuff. It's there's a whole bunch of different like perspectives and points that this happens. Like it's not just a boom and done type thing. And you put it very well how you spoke about it. So I think just Junior Sparks in general will cover so many different things that we need to talk about more and that deserve to be talked about, because I feel like we silence a lot of big topics that need to be talked about.
I really like the idea of how Junior Spark is like student-led, because I feel like it's hard for students who are going through a lot of this like mental health and substance abuse issues to connect to adults, because sometimes it just feels like a lecture when it comes from an adult who is trying to help you, and you understand that they're trying to help you, but it also just feels like they're lecturing you on why you shouldn't do that or why you should get help. And I feel like coming from a student's perspective, it's easier to connect with them. So I really like how it's student-led, and I really like how passionate each one of you are about it and how you want to help. And I just love that for our school and for our community, because I feel like you said, like it's not a topic that is talked about. It's uncomfortable, and a lot of people aren't passionate enough to speak up about it, and I love how you guys are passionate enough to speak up about it.
Okay, so the next question is, in Clinton community, what types of drugs or issues have you guys personally seen, and like how do you think that this could be prevented, if there's any way?
I know that there is a lot within our county. There's everything that ranges from opiates to even harder, specifically fentanyl and cocaine and prescription pills. It's horrible. And thank you for noting that. Like you were just so honest with us there. I just want to point that out really quick. Like, thank you, Liam. That took a lot to like open up and be like so honest with us. So I just want to point that out. So thank you.
I also want to say I think that was really brave of you to go on camera and announce that to a community where you said parents and students watching this. So I think that took a lot of courage to come forward and say that. So you're a really brave person on top of the empathy. So I wanted to note that as well, because it's not easy. Outside of what I've seen in Clayton County, I graduated from Beekmantown in 2019, and while in school, I had friends that were dealing drugs to adults. I had some friends that were, bringing marijuana to school. They were bringing their e-cigs to school, and they would get caught with them like 3 on at a time. And, my position here at school is to help educate with that as well. And myself is in your code of conduct. If you get caught on campus, you are required to come meet with me. So I've seen it in the schools as well, this school as well. Not as prevalent as it was when I was in school, which is a great sign. Either that or you guys are just really good at hiding it. But outside of the community as well, we've just had some pretty recent overdoses within the adolescent community, maybe not necessarily teenagers, but people not very much older than you, with cocaine laced with fentanyl just within that month of December. But that's nothing new to this area, unfortunately. Growing up, my first apartment was in downtown Plattsburgh, and I was driving down with my windows open, and I thought there was a propane tank explosion because my throat was burning and the air smelled a little funny. And I ran into my old cheer coach, and she's also a volunteer firefighter, who I told her about the incident, and she explained to me that actually it was a meth lab that exploded the house on the street down from where I was living. So thankfully there was no effect, but I did have to breathe that in because I was driving with my car windows down, so I didn't know. But it's just something as simple as that. You don't understand per se. I mean, I've had to bring in a wipe container full of needles that somebody disposed on the side of the road that me and my sister ran into while I was going for a walk with my niece and her dog. So we cleaned those up and brought them to the hospital. My other apartment complex, I found needles in the bushes where I've had to call police to come pick them up so my dog or son didn't step on them. So it's definitely a pretty prevalent issue. I mean, even with the e-cigs, we see them all over on the grounds. When people are done with them, they just chuck them out the window or throw them on the sidewalk. You see cigarette butts, not as much anymore, but especially when I was growing up, you would see cigarette butts everywhere you went. Now you do see like joints and blunts and stuff, the papers and the ends of that hanging around towns. I brought my son to a playground in downtown Plattsburgh for a play date, and there were beer cans and pipes all over on the playground where I'm bringing my toddler son to play. So it's definitely prevalent in the county, and it's pretty sad. And I think we need more resources to help with not only the substance prevention, but also like more available mental health resources and getting students like yourself involved so it's not starting at a younger age before it becomes a really big issue when they're entering into the adult community as well.
Liam, thank you for opening up. You're very brave. And Reese, if I had a kid and I was bringing my child somewhere where there was needles or like beer cans or something that can like potentially harm them, I'd be scared. You're brave as well. I've seen a lot of cannabis and like marijuana use, especially on the bus. So, and I've also seen a lot of vaping in our school. So I have a couple of friends that do marijuana, and they sometimes bring joints onto the bus and they hit them like right behind me where my seat is. And my father is a police officer, so I'm not around any marijuana or any type of drug, or he can lose his job. So it's kind of scary when I'm sitting next to someone that's doing substances and I'm near them, and the smell or like some type of like contact with the drug could either put like me or my father at risk. And I also have like a medical condition, like I have like critical asthma, so if I do any sort of like vaping or like marijuana, that can potentially like harm me. But I've had like friends that like have blown smoke into my face, or like the vape smoke like into my face, and I've seen like a lot of people like hit their vape like underneath like their arms and stuff in like class. And it's just really sad to see that people are getting sneakier and sneakier, like how like to use these things due to like addiction or just wanting to have something to do like while they're bored, or just doing something that they know isn't good for them, but they just are doing it. And it's sad to see, but it's really frequent like within our community.
I have seen a lot of vaping and cannabis use in the school. And I think, Liam, you're brave, once again. But I think we're all brave just by speaking about an issue that a lot of people, I feel like when they speak about it, they feel like they're going to get judged. They feel like they're going to get attacked, criticized. And I don't think they should feel that way. I really don't. Because this is an issue that I don't think it's the people that do the drugs most of the time that are the issue. I think it's the drug itself that is the big issue. And I feel like a lot of people focus on the people like that do the drugs, and they're like, oh, why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Why are you throwing your needles on the ground? Why are you throwing your joint on the ground? Why are you throwing your substances on the ground? And I think we should maybe take back a little bit. I mean, yes, it's a bad thing to throw that stuff on the ground. But obviously, where they're coming from, they're devoted their life to this drug. They're praising this drug. They're thinking this drug is all they have. And a lot of people that maybe have never experienced addiction or anything like that, think, okay, but it's not that bad. But it is that bad. They devote their life to it, as I've said. And it's a bad topic. It's a bad thing. And I'm glad we're speaking about it. I don't know what to say other than I'm glad this is here. I'm glad this is a thing, and I'm glad I'm here.
I do want to start off by saying, Liam, I'm like very proud of you for coming out and being able to say that, because that's a hard thing. Like, it really, like, people get embarrassed, and we were just talking about being judged, and you said this on camera in front of parents, teachers, our community, and that is like, I look up to you for that, honestly. This is about education. So Hannah, I do want to let you know that joints are not actually getting brought onto the bus. Joints are different than what you're seeing on the bus. You will see, they're like vapes, but they just have cannabis in them instead. That way, when you're talking about it to people, they're not thinking that joints are on the bus, because an actual joint on the bus is like, holy moly. Like, it's not, you didn't know, and it's not like that I'm coming at you. I just want you to be able to be educated. That way, you know for next time. I am adopted. I got taken from my birth family because all of them have done drugs or are doing drugs. I grew up around that. That's the life that I lived and partially still do live. I do see my birth family still, but there's still people that make mistakes and they are still in active addiction. And it's hard. It's hard to help people. I'm not going to say that it's easy, because it's not. And when I said about constructive criticism, they definitely feel like they're being judged, and it's hard to help people, especially like Connor said, it feels like that's all they have, because it does feel that way. It feels like you're alone and the drug is your best friend and that's all you have. But sometimes you need to be able to look up and be like, I have these people around me that are here to help me, and that's what Spark is for. So you can look up and be like, these people around me are here to help me, to move forward in my life so I can do better for myself, the community, my kids if you have them. Also, Hannah said that she has chronic asthma. People, they'll vape and hit their pens in the bathrooms and, oh no, it doesn't affect anybody, it just affects me. Well, it doesn't just affect you. Say you hit your pen and smoke goes everywhere, and then Hannah walks into the bathroom. 1, she could get secondhand high. 2, that could make her go into an asthma attack, which is a big thing. And then you are now responsible for someone that has an asthma attack, which could possibly kill her, because, I'm sorry, are you allowed to carry your inhaler around with you like all day, or does it just stay in your locker?
It stays in my locker.
Okay, so my dad is a respiratory therapist, the one that I live with. You're in the time that you're having an asthma attack, say she's upstairs in 11th grade bathroom, by the time somebody gets downstairs, unlocks her locker, gets the inhaler, and gets it to her, the chances of her being alive are very slim. The reasons why you're supposed to be able to carry your inhaler with you is so you're able to prevent things like that. And the schools, think of it as a drug. You're supposed to keep them in the nurse. You need a doctor's note. That way you can carry them with you. And it's something that helps you. And that's how addiction can start also. People get pain narcotics to help them, and they become addicted and they use it, and then, like I said, it becomes to feel like their best friend. And it's really important to know that these people do need help, and they don't always want it, but trying to help is important. And you definitely will see it around Clayton County. It's a thing that happens, but you can't always change it. And we can try and help, and that's what we're here for. But just know that even if you don't fix it, you trying to help is a step forward into changing our community.
I would say I'm a pretty sheltered kid at like the least of words. I only really see what happens in our school. I know one time in 8th grade, someone was vaping and they blew the smoke right in my face when I just wanted to wash my hands. And if I'm being honest, I wouldn't have told anyone if they didn't do that to me, because that's just straight up rude. Like, no one wants to have this puff of smoke because, like, it's just gross. And my biggest fear about going in the bathroom after someone's vaping is, like, coming out smelling like that because I don't want to be connected to that, like, group of people, I guess. Because, like, I know I don't do it, and I, like, pride myself on not making that decision. One time I went to a concert and I got a contact high, and that's, like, the only thing I've ever had involving drugs, and I was, like, it was weird. I was, like, so sleepy and tired. And that's not even, like, a real high because I didn't inhale it. Like, it's kind of real but not real at the same time. I didn't even inhale anything directly. So it's strange just seeing, like, that correlation and difference in it. But it is kind of scary just seeing, like, how much you guys are talking about it and how much you do see it, because I don't really pay attention to this because I don't really know what to look for to see all these different, like, ways people can bring it into our school and our community. So I do think that's another reason why Junior Sparks is important, just to educate everyone, because I wouldn't have known the difference between the stuff you talked about. Like, I can't even remember, like, that's how bad it is. So I think it's good to educate people on what this is and what it's actually doing to our community.
Yeah, I think it's definitely important to talk about this stuff. Like, one thing that I notice is definitely, like I've never actually seen anyone vaping in the bathrooms, but, like, I can definitely smell, like, I've definitely walked in there and I'm like, oh, that's not how it's supposed to smell in here. But like, locking the bathrooms, like, I have to walk, like, wherever in the school, like, sometimes all the way across just to use the bathroom because they're, like, sometimes they'll lock them and then you have to walk all the way, and then the teachers are like, where were you? Trying to find a bathroom. So that's definitely one thing I noticed. And I know in middle school, I think it was our school, like, it was here, it was in the middle school cafeteria. They did a presentation at least on vaping. And it was really sad to see the amount of turnout people because there was only, like, me and, like, maybe a couple other people. That was it out of everybody. And I was like, they're trying to bring awareness to this stuff, but then nobody wants to come and show up and listen to what they have to say. And they even talked about, like the effects, what it can do to your body, and, like, how it affects other people around you. So, like, the bathrooms and vaping is definitely one thing that I've definitely noticed, and I've definitely seen kids vape, like, while they're in class, and I get, like, it's an addiction, but I'm like, you should really, like, reach out for help because it's not just affecting you, it's definitely affecting other kids around you, so, including the teachers, so it's definitely important.
I just want to thank Erica and Liam for opening up family life and, like, personal perspectives, because that's hard to even say to a friend. So to do it in front of the whole world is hard. It's very hard, and I'm proud of you both because that's a hard point to get to. So thank you. I'm also a very sheltered kid, like Addie. My mom, she works for public health. She does a lot of, like, drug prevention. She writes a lot of stuff on that. She mostly works with, like, bat rabies, but she does a lot of drug prevention things and statistics with that. So I've always been pretty sheltered to that. I do remember my youth soccer, I had a game and a woman had overdosed on heroin in the bathroom, and I believe she passed away because of it, but that's a hard thing to watch as a kid because you don't really understand what's going on, especially, like, in such an open area where there is a lot of, like, youth around. And I also, like, going along with, like, alcohol, I hung out with a lot of people who would drink a lot, and I wouldn't partake in it. I would always say no. I have very strong feelings about succumbing to peer pressure. Like, I know how to say no. And one time someone had been like, oh, Kenzie, just try this, and I didn't realize that it was alcohol, and I'm very allergic to alcohol, and I drank it, and my intestines were, like, dead the next day. And it's hard to be around that sometimes, and it's hard to get people the help they need because, like you guys said, like, that's something they depend on. in everyday life, and it's hard to kind of break away from that habit. So I just I love what this program is like putting out there, and like I will stand up for this because I think everyone needs to hear it.
I'm sorry. I jumped the gun a little bit earlier. And I'm actually very thankful that you brought up alcohol, because I think I phrased the question as about specifically drugs, but substances are not only just drugs. There's also alcohol and alcoholism, and how I know for a fact that's rampant in our schools. Not just Clinton community, I'm sure it's everywhere in the world. I mean, high schoolers like to party, and so definitely peer pressure and feeling like you need to do it because your friends are doing it, or wanting to go to a party because your friends are going and you don't want to miss out, and the fear of not being somewhere where everybody else is, and the fearing of missing out. The FOMO, yeah, it's a big thing. And thank you, Erica. Thank you so much for like educating us all. I'm so thankful that you're here, because I will admit most of us did not know a whole bunch about Spark, and I'm so thankful that we had this opportunity, and that you guys agreed to be here, and that you were willing to share experiences that you've had, and I'm just so grateful.
Do others influence these bad decisions?
I think within our community and our school, I think it's very prominent that people are pushing the vaping, the smoking, drinking, all of it. I think peer pressure is plays such a huge role within the drug use in our community, because most people don't just pick it up because they think it's fun, right? They pick it up because they feel like they have to, like their friends are doing it and they think it's cool, so they're picking it up because of that. Or they were prescribed something, and that's usually how it goes. But I think other people play such a huge role in it. But I also just kind of want to touch on something that you said. You brought up overdoses, and that really kind of choked me up. The fact that, and this isn't against you guys, the fact that people aren't talking about how much people are overdosing and dying every single day is insane to me. Every day, overdoses are dying, people are dying every day due to overdoses. Almost about a 757 plane, that's a fact. A 757 plane going down every day. Imagine if a plane was going down every single day. The news would go crazy, but because they're drug addicts, we don't feel that way.
I really liked that. I like the educational piece, but also putting in that comparison, because we've recently just had a couple of plane crashes too, and it has made the news. It has been attention. But you're right. I think only one of the overdoses that have led to deaths that I've heard about in the past 2 months, only one of them was brought to a community attention. So I think that's a really accurate point. I also do think people do play a part. There are a lot of factors that go into people using substances, and the risk factors that could be targeted with Junior Spark are some of those. But even so with social media, I mean, you don't see the heavier substances such as opiates or even heroin and meth necessarily being glamorized, but you do see THC, vaping, and alcohol use very much glamorized, especially with younger populations on things like TikTok, or even going into college, the partying in frat houses. I mean, myself was once exposed to that. I was a freshman in college, and a lot of the idea your freshman year is partying. I believe in Europe, somewhere in Europe, I want to say England, their first semester of college isn't even really counting towards their their college experience, because they expect kids to just go in and party that first semester and fail, essentially. So it's like our laws and norms around it have definitely developed. I mean, we've had a increase in dispensaries even just within Clinton County. I think we have 4 of them in Plattsburgh right now. So yeah, I really think it does go with that influence on top of other risk factors as well. I also do hate to do this because I know you have it set up so perfectly, but I do have to step out because I have a meeting with somebody. So I do apologize.
Thank you so much, Reese, for being here. Addie, what you said. Go into the auditorium right now, call down every student, and tell them that exact same thing, because I will be there in the front row cheering you on, because that is amazing. I'm going to answer the question first, and then I'm going to go back to a few points. Yes, I do think others do have an influence on, like, encouraging others to partake in certain things. I know I definitely have fallen in, like, a little bit of temptation. I've had friends try to hand me, like, hey, hit this cart real quick, and I'm like, I'm good, thank you. But, like, I try my best not to, like, interact with that type of thing, because, one, I mentioned it before, my father, and, like, I don't want to put him at any risk, and one, for myself, because I try to stay loyal to my beliefs and my values. But yeah, I do think others do have a role in when it comes to substance abuse and drug abuse. Going back to, like, alcohol, what Skylar and Kenzie said, I'm going to open up a little bit. When I was a kid, I used to drink alcohol a lot, like, during the summer. My priest at my church brought over, like, alcohol ice pops to my house, and I didn't know they were alcohol until I read the label. I ate the whole entire box in less than, like, 2 days. And then after that, I kept seeing, like, wine bottles and, like, alcohol within my house, and I would drink it constantly. I would keep adding it more to other drinks, just so I could fulfill that little bit of, like, ooh, I'm doing something bad when my parents are not in the house. And I regret it now, because whenever I tell people that, I get scared, and I'm like, wow, I didn't know I was doing this, and I didn't realize how much it would actually, like, affect how I've been, like, treating, like, this type of topic because of, like, my own experiences. And also, thank you, Erica, for educating me. I wasn't familiar with that, and thank you.
I think people influence others all the time, because it starts off with curiosity, or, man, I'm feeling really bad. Everyone's talking about this substance and how it's done this and this. One little bit won't hurt, and one little bit turns into more and more and more, and before you know it, you can't live without it. I also think that because it's common, it's seen everywhere. I mean, it's hard to avoid someone with a vape or someone with a cart in their hands hitting it. That people are seeing that and they're thinking, oh, it's normal. This is just normal. This is what people do. And I want to be normal. I want to be seen as, people, right? I want to fit in. So then they do it. And then that's addiction. And it's a domino. It's a domino effect. One sees it, one does it, and it's just one to fit in, one to be the cool person. And I really think that, once again, this is going to help that issue. Because, you trust your friends, you trust your family. So when you see some of them do this, you think, okay, well, they're smart people. Why, there's a lot of ways it can influence people, and I think one of the big ones is people think that if they do this, they'll fit in because they see people do it, and they think, okay, well, I'll do this, I'll be in this friend group, and I'll have lots of friends. So yeah, I think people influence vaping, drugs. I think it's a big influence.
I do want to start off with what Addie said. People, they don't take it into consideration. They're like, oh, like, whatever. I lost my dad to an overdose in 2019. I lost my uncle to an overdose in 2015. I've lost more people, and I'm not going to go down the list, to overdoses. And when people are in active addiction, they don't necessarily think about the consequences that could happen. Oh, yeah, I see it happen, but that's not going to happen to me because I know what I'm doing. I know how much I take. I know how much I can take. Yada, yada, yada. and it's definitely a hard thing. To the question, I will say that peer pressure is a thing to an extent. It is not all peer pressure. It's not all because other people are like, oh yeah, I do this, and now I'm going to do it. That's not the case in every situation, and for people to be aware that is important, because there are some people that need to be held accountable for their actions, for picking it up for whatever reason they chose, even if it wasn't peer pressure. I will say peer pressure is definitely a big thing, though. I look up to, I will name drop. His name is most of you might know him. Some of you might know him. I love him to death. He smokes weed, a lot of weed. And I was going through a lot, and he was the first person I ever smoked with. And I'm not gonna lie, I smoke, and it's definitely something that needs to be calmed down. But there's also a difference between using a substance and being addicted to the substance. And as much as people will say, oh, you're not addicted, I'm not addicted, da da da, you are. Let me just call you out right now. You're addicted. I'm addicted. Everybody else is addicted that does the substance. Even if you're just smoking once a day, or you're like, oh, it helps me go to bed, da da, you're still doing it. You still are dependent on the substance. And that is a big thing that people don't get called out for. So when you're sitting there and you're listening to this and you're like, oh, well, maybe I do it every once in a while, but I'm not addicted. You are. If you go back to it more than once, you're addicted. And that's an issue. And some people want to fix it, some people don't want to fix it. And at the end of the day, that is your decision whether or not you're going to continue the behavior or stop the behavior. But I feel like the peer pressure thing is definitely a big factor, but like I said, to an extent. So just keep that in mind when you're talking about it.
I think like starting to use a substance is made of 3 things. 1, peer pressure. 2, just like general curiosity of what the substance is and like why people are so drawn to it. And just like sometimes people feel sad and they think, oh, this person uses it because they say it makes them feel really happy, and I've just been at a really low point in my life right now. So I feel like there's a lot of different ways, and like Erica said, it's not all about peer pressure. Oh, fitting in. I feel like a lot of people use it just because they want to fit in, and they, like Connor said, they think it's really cool and like snazzy to like be in this population of people just because they have like a group of people. Because sometimes when they're lonely, that's when someone makes the most amount of poor decisions that they can, is when they're lonely. And I think that's, everyone deserves to be able to be heard and have a voice about what is going on in their life, and to be able to talk about the problems, big or small. And just like this one, people don't get a lot of time to be able to talk about it, or they just feel like they aren't worthy to talk about themselves in like bigger situations because they've never been able to.
I think that peer pressure is definitely part of it, especially in school and most likely I would think college, because you're always around other people, and like everyone that's around you like has an effect on you whether you realize it or not, and so that's a big part of it. But the good thing about like day and age now, like we have a lot of resources, so you can like hopefully get help or have people that can help you. But I think definitely to an extent it's peer pressure. I think it gets to a point like you would just do it like on your own. Like you don't need anybody else to be like, oh my gosh, go do this, or we're gonna go here whenever, come with us kind of thing. Like it's definitely like to a certain point.
I just want to start off by saying thank you for sharing that about. I know that's hard to open up and get to that point. And Addie, I really liked that perspective that you put out there because I would have never thought of it like that. And it's just like you never see anything about overdose because people don't want to talk about it. They're like, it's just uncomfortable and weird to talk about, and people are just like, believe that it's their fault that they overdosed. It's their fault. So we don't need to talk about it. It's their fault. And I just think that that's such a norm now, you know, that people don't want to talk about it. And I think that norm needs to be flipped. And peer pressure, I think that a lot of like vaping and all these things you like Reese said, like it's very glamorized online. Like I just saw Alex Earl have her 24-hour party where she like drank for someone's birthday for 24 hours and like did this stuff and just stay up. They like, it's, the term now is skiing, but it's cocaine. And I just feel like that is so glamorized online because it's like giving people ideas to just go out and party for 24 hours. And like these are like hard substances that are being used and put out online as if it's like nothing. And like you said, like peer pressure is to an extent, like you start out using something with peer pressure and you just continue to use it. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's in moderation, like I don't do it all the time. But like you said, like you're going back to it, it's an addiction, and it's hard to want to ask for help. So
I feel like a lot of times peer pressure, people associate it with just like big things, but peer pressure is so like engraved in society that like it's to the point where people don't even register that it is peer pressure. Like from the clothes that you wear, the shoes that you buy, like certain fashion trends that are like all over the internet, you see that and you go, oh, I want those too, you know, like that's a form of peer pressuring. That's a form of, I don't know, FOMO. Like you want to be a part of those, I'm going back to fashion trends or whatever, but like it's everything. Oh, you know, my friend's eating this kind of food. Oh, maybe I like that more than what I'm eating. You know what I mean? And then it's, if you're already doing that before drugs are introduced, it's not going to be very hard for substances to assume that role as well.
Kenzie, you hit the nail right on the head. I was going to break down rather, initially, when you first start using the substance or whatever, it's, I would say 90% peer pressure, and then the 10%, you know, mental health, insecurity, comparisons, all that stuff. But then once you enter like the chronic stage kind of, or even before that a little bit, then it almost flips. It's almost 90% mental health and insecurity, comparisons, all this stuff, and 10% peer pressure.
So we're gonna call it for there. Just again, for the millionth time, thank you to everybody who's here and sharing your perspectives. We really appreciate it. And this is a message that needs to get out to the community more, and we will do our best to spread our word with our tiny little community that we have with the podcast.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like so much more educated now, and I just wanted to thank everyone for their own unique perspectives, because I feel like sometimes as a community we're in a little bit of a bubble. Like we only worry about us, we only worry about our friends, and I feel like getting this message out in the world is what will make a difference. So I just wanted to thank everyone and thank the viewers for watching.